Hi everyone, Pastor Greg again, and we've got another question from one of the kids. This week's question is this: what does God look like? Huh. Have you ever wondered that? What does God look like? We talk about God all the time, don't we? We say that God created all the world around us and even created us. We say that God is everywhere we can go. We say that God knows us, each one of us, and God loves us. But what does God look like? Well, let's turn to the Bible and see what it says. There are not many verses that talk about how God looks, but some of the prophets, these were people who had a special connection to God. They wrote several things about God's appearance. Let's see what they say. The first one comes from the book of Ezekiel. And Ezekiel was one of the prophets in the Old Testament. And he said this: "Then there came a voice from above the expanse over their heads as they stood and they lowered their wings." These are other creatures that are flying with wings. "And above the expanse over their heads was what looked like a throne of sapphire. It was high above the throne was a figure like that of a man. And I saw from what appeared to be his waist up, he looked like glowing metal, as full of fire, and that from down, and from there down, he looked like fire. A brilliant light surrounded him, like the appearance of a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day. So was the radiance all around him." Now, I think the prophet Ezekiel is talking about a vision that he had, a dream that he had, what God looked like. It said that he was on a throne of sapphire. Sapphire is a very beautiful stone. And it said that he looked like from the waist up, he looked like glowing metal. And from the waist down, it looked like it was full of fire. Wow. Isn't that something? And surrounded by something like a rainbow. That's something to imagine, isn't it? These prophets had quite some visions. Let's read what Daniel says when he saw a picture of God. "And as I looked, thrones were set in place." And you know what thrones are? They're big chairs that kings sit in. "Thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days," that's another name for God, "took his seat on the throne, and his clothing was as white as snow, and his hair looked as white as wool. And his throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. A river of fire was flowing out, coming down from before him, and thousands upon thousands attended to him." Wow. Again, we get a picture of God sitting on the throne in bright, brilliant white, like fire. The last one we want to look at comes from the very last book of the Bible that was written by one of Jesus' close friends, John. And he had a dream too, and a vision of what God might look like. Let me read to you from Revelation 4. "After this I looked, and before me was a door, standing open in heaven. And there was a voice, and I heard speaking to me like a trumpet. It said, 'Come up here, and I will show you what must take place.' And at once I was in the Spirit, and there before me was a throne in heaven, and someone sitting on it. And there was one who sat there, had the appearance of jasper and coryllium, and a rainbow resembling an emerald encircled the throne." Isn't that something? Here again, God is sitting on a throne, and there's reference to both beautiful and precious stones and bright like fire and rainbows. What do you think of when you think of God? What does God look like? Over the years, many painters have made pictures of what they think God was like. Here are some of them. Sometimes they have God flying in the sky. And other times, God is flying but with other angels or other beings surrounding him. Here's a picture that I think makes God look like he's dancing at the disco with his fingers pointed out. Sometimes there's God without very much hair. And here's one of my favorite paintings. It looks like God with a lot of hair. This one reminds me of Melody and Vienna's grandfather, our friend Ernesto. Some people think of God as a mathematician, and others, and maybe this is a good way to think, just as light. The Bible tells us that God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. Well, one thing we do know, the Bible doesn't want us to spend much time trying to figure out what God looks like. Rather, the Bible is written so we can know what God's character is like, how he acts, and what he values, the things that he puts emphasis on, the things that the way that he acts, and what his affections are. And we know that God is a God of mercy, God is a God of justice, God is a God of truth, God is a long-suffering God of compassion and forgiveness, and above all other things, God is a God of love. When you think about times and people in your life, moments when folks have shown love to you, maybe a parent or a grandparent or one of your friends has acted in a loving way, I think that's one of the best pictures we have of what God looks like. God looks like love and compassion and long-suffering, forgiveness and joy. I hope we can live with each other in such a way that the way we behave and the things that we say reflect some of God's love and glory back to each other. I'm glad we're doing this together, you and me and your parents and all the other friends from church, learning more about what God is like and how we can be more like him. Till next time, bye-bye.